Howdy folks, I want to welcome you to the Campfire, a place where we can just sit and tell a story or two and we can ponder on the unusual and mysterious things that occur out here in the wild. I'll tell you some of my stories and well, you can tell me some of yours. This is Clay Steele. Come join me around the campfire here beneath the stars. Grab a cup of coffee or a cold drink and let's talk about our stories. Can't wait. Well, howdy friends. Sure is nice to have some company tonight. Campfires are always a little better when they can be shared with others, right? So get relaxed. Find a comfortable place to sit. I hope you have something nice to drink. This is kind of a longer story. I have an interesting story I'd like to share tonight. Well, it's about the contact between the critters that call the woods home and the people that work daily in that environment. Most times the interactions, they're without great consequence. They're just trying to keep a chipmunk out of your food supply, to having to break your car to avoid hitting a deer in the road, birds that you see, that kind of thing. Well, once you've been out here for a while, it just sort of flows together and it's all pretty much insignificant. It all sort of makes sense. It's nature. But sometimes things happen that just don't have an obvious explanation, right? So such it was for Ranger Elizabeth, Liz they called her, Garrett. She'd been with the Forest Service for 8 years now. 3 years of seasonal work. Now, seasonal workers, they get all the tough work like bagging trash up and clearing brush out of campsites and trail work and weeding and cleaning and stocking the toilets for the summer tourists that come up to enjoy their national forests. So then 5 years back, she was lucky enough to get a full-time position, her dream job. She didn't have to do the grunge work that a seasonal hire had to do anymore, and she got to be in the woods year-round. Though most of it was in a guard shack now, and it was, tourist interaction. But there's so much more to see than just what happens in the summer. The fall, it brings the hunters and the best colors in the trees. Now the winter, it brings the hardy folks that they come up to play in the snow and get their cars stuck, of course. And in the spring is the explosion of bugs and plants and animals that they're all trying to interact and follow that driving force within all of us to reproduce and further our species. Now the males, they strut and spar and they try anything to win the favor of the females, right? So it's such a crazy time in the wild that things don't always go as planned. There's a lot of emotions and a lot of hormones, right? So when Liz left her guard shack and locked up to go home for the night, she definitely misunderstood the meaning of the rabbit carcass on the hood of her car. Only about 100 foot away from her little office guard shack thing, the employee parking lot sat off the road behind a curtain of young trees. Though she could see where her Subaru was parked if she stepped out of the shack and looked back toward where the creek was, she didn't normally do that. And nobody ever had problems with theft or vandalism in that lot because it was off the road and really only a few staff members parked there. So she thought one of her colleagues did that as a prank. Not a funny prank, mind her, in her opinion, but then the seasonal workers were just starting to show up, and she figured it was just one of the gang working off some pent-up energy after a long winter. She lifted the rabbit off her car and carried it down towards the creek. She laid its body there on a rock. She was sure that sometime before she got back to work in the morning, one of the many different scavengers would have made good use of this free protein. So she got in her Subaru and started home to her apartment. She didn't give it another thought, and nobody came forward to admit they'd done it. So it was just that a week later, she'd already put it out of her mind. She had a good day and was ready to go home. So she closed down. She locked the door and started out to the parking lot where her car was. Well, as she got close to her car, she saw something on the windshield. Her mind went right away to that rabbit from last week, but as she stepped up to the driver's side, of a car, she saw a large bunch of wildflowers on the hood and up on the windshield there. Someone had plucked a huge bunch of Virginia bluebells and placed them on Liz's car. Though beautiful, it was nonetheless disturbing, taken with the events of last week with the rabbit. Now this became a problem. Someone was scaring Liz. She looked around, all the way around. She shivered. She wondered to herself, did she have a stalker? Who was it? Was he watching her right now? She grabbed the flowers and threw them off to the side of her car. All of a sudden scared, she opened her door and she got in and she locked her doors. She was overcome with emotion. She started to lose it. A few tears started down her cheeks. And when she got a hold of herself, firmly telling herself out loud, "You're strong, way stronger than this." With newfound determination, she started that car up and backed out of her parking spot and drove for home. Always a thinker. She did her best thinking while driving. Oh, a lot of us do. I do. Flowers and a dead rabbit. Those two things don't go together, no matter what. Well, they didn't naturally put themselves on my car, so someone did. So I'll set a trap and I'll catch them. Now, Liz was an amateur photographer, and a good one. A few of her images had made it to the local paper, and one was in a national parks pamphlet. And she, if anyone, understood the power of a photograph. She had a trail camera, and I think y'all know what that is. You know, you tie it onto a tree, and it's got batteries in it and a camera built into this body, and when something gets close enough to trip the beam, it takes a photo of it or video. And heck, they got nice ones now that take infrared photos, all kinds of stuff. So she had one of those, and she was going to set it up inside her car, and she would catch the person that was messing with her. If she wanted to, she could turn them into HR, and they might lose their job. At the very least, she could make them stop leaving things on her Subaru. Well, now she had a plan. She celebrated with her favorite vegan dinner and slept like a baby that night. The next day, she parked in her normal spot, set up the camera so that it was hidden in the back seat and the prankster wouldn't see it. She went into her booth and didn't look back at the car all day long. She was a little disappointed that night when she only had pictures of a chipmunk jumping on the hood 11 times and a few birds that tripped the sensors on the trail cam. In fact, that's the way it was all the rest of the week. But Friday, hoo boy, what a surprise. She walked out to her car at the end of the day, not expecting to find anything there. But when she sat down in the driver's seat, she looked up through the windshield and she could see that someone had smeared something all over the glass. "What the hell? That's nasty," she said. She got out and cleaned the mess off the windshield with paper towels and Windex she kept in the back of her car. Not knowing what it was that she cleaned off, she threw the towels away in the trash can at the head of the lot, got in and drove home, thinking to herself that she would turn this creep in and hope he lost his job. Who knows what he had smeared all over her window. Well, she got home and pulled the chip out of the camera, inserted it into her computer, and got the shock of her life. There were 119 separate still pictures of a large, hairy face that only a mom could love, kissing and licking and generally making out with the windshield of her Subaru. A few pictures showed the creature was smelling the door frame with eyes closed. Now, I don't think Liz really got what happened here. You see, the first 3 years she worked in the park, she spent all of her time outdoors, and it was sometime during the 3rd year when the Bigfoot, and that's what he is, crossed paths with the park ranger. You see, Liz is one of those natural women, sort of a modern hippie, Humboldt honey they call him in Northern Cal. She didn't shave at all, she wore no modern chemical deodorants or perfumes, and she washed her clothes with clean natural soaps. Basically a healthy woman. Now this is what caught the eye of this young male Sasquatch. She smelled good, she looked good, and she never was with a mate. She was available, right? So it was that he set out to impress her. The rabbit was a gift to prove his hunting prowess, the bluebells for the beauty, and finally overcome with lust, he couldn't hold back, and he gave a display of affection, loving on her car, spurred on by her scent inside the car. She told her boss, who then moved to put lighting in the parking lot and approved Liz to move to a different location at the other end of the park. Now the beast, with a broken heart, he moved on. He's probably still roaming the forest, always in search of his lost love. Every once in a while, the whiff of patchouli will get him excited, and with some high hopes he will track the smell, only to be disappointed again. So you see, folks, another one of life's lessons. Even if we think we may have found that one, love is a two-way street. Now take care of yourselves. I will be here next time you can make it to the campfire. Until then, this is Clay Steele. Good night.